Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 477.
Real-time games.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Glenn looks at some free print-and-play games, Jackie examines the networks, and Jeff discusses the challenges of making a real-time game. Plus, we run through our Essen plans, we have a tale of horror to share, some questions from the mailbag, and we all take a look at those real-time games in our top 10 list. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Peter Venkman to my Egon Spengler, Tom Vassell.
Why can't I be Ray?
Because you're the leader.
Venkman was kind of a jerk, though.
No comment.
Yeah. No comment always means comment. Have you not noticed that? Yeah. Have you seen the new Ghostbusters?
I have. I enjoyed it.
I did too. I enjoyed it, and I know this is anathema, as much as the original one, actually.
I'm not really arguing. I thought it was a really fun film, and I can't wait to... My wife didn't see it. I saw it when I was on a trip to Kalamazoo, and so I saw it solo on opening night. But she hasn't seen it yet, and I think she'd really enjoy it. So I'm waiting patiently for it to come out on home video.
Yeah, same here, actually. I saw it with one of my daughters, and I thought my other two older daughters would really enjoy it. You know, it shows, I like the whole, it's female leads in a positive light, so that's a good thing.
Sure. It was a fun film. I mean, no complaints. Indeed.
Now, because this is a real-time game episode, we're going to record this in real time.
Don't we usually?
Yes. But,
or are we going to listen to all of the segments in real time? That's how you used to do it, right?
We used to. Well, I started doing that because people would say, you need to comment on the segments. And I was like, all right. So we'll play them and listen to them, and then we'll laugh during the segment when they say funny things. And I found that people definitely did not like that.
They didn't like that,
They did not like our laughter during the segment. But so goes to show you. Well, Rich does his real time. Rich is back, man.
Rich Summer is back. The Cardboard podcast with Rich Summer. Really fun stuff. I've been enjoying his live call-in stuff. It's different. It's a neat experiment, and I think it's working so far. It's a good time. It's a voice that I'm happy to have back in the podosphere that we inhabit.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've actually been toying with the idea of doing something like that ourselves at some point where we allow people to call in live. There was a time I did that, I don't know, almost a decade ago now.
We had a phone number at one point, right, where people could leave messages and then no one ever used it?
Well, maybe we have more listeners now, so maybe it would happen. We probably would get spam like, sir, would you like to know how you can get more money for the Dice Tower?
Would you like to learn about solar panels, sir?
But I mean, no, like what he does, the thing was I was actually considering this, and then he started it, and I was like, well, if I do it now, it will look like we're copying Cardboard Game.
Yeah, let him make the mistakes first, and then later on, you can learn those lessons vicariously.
Well, he already made the first mistake. He had Bonacor on the show.
Oh, man. I actually haven't gotten to that episode yet. I'm still one episode back.
I took care of it. I called in.
Oh, good. I thought you might.
Have you been on any other podcasts lately?
I have. What an excellent segue, Tom. I was actually on the D6 Generation this past week, and it's episode 198. And I got to talk with Russ and Craig about, I guess there was a Lost chapter, which is one of their Patreon bonus episodes. We got to talk about Gen Con. We did a review of Colt Express. We talked about a bunch of games with awesome components. It was just fun to hang out with a different crew for a little while. And I think it's a good episode. I haven't heard the final product, but it was a very fun discussion. And it's out now. Episode 198 of the D6 Generation.
You know, whenever you guys get a chance, you should actually go listen to Eric's last time he was on the show. I think that was like last year, maybe?
At least a year ago. I think it may have been 2.
2 years. Well, either way, in it, Eric does like an FAQ of voiceover. Like if you ever like, why does Eric do this or what does he do? He answered pretty much all those questions on that show.
Yeah. That was a fun discussion too.
Although I think that your life has changed even slightly since then, because I remember you saying, I would like to stop doing corporate work.
Yes.
And you're getting pretty close to that.
I still do a little bit, but it tends to be more stuff I've chosen or I've auditioned for, or they're clients I actually like, as opposed to some of the stuff that takes up a lot of time that I don't enjoy.
I want to know how you get the robot subway jobs.
Ooh, those are tough. Very, very competitive.
All right, well, let's get into some
Stand clear of the
games.
closing doors, please. I've been practicing.
Love that. Okay, so we're going to talk about some games. I'm going to start by talking about Heroes of Kaskaria. Now, this is a HABA game. It is a kids game. It is a game about running to the top of a mountain. You can either fly on your griffin or ride on your scaled cat, your cliff jumper. That's right.
Oh, wow. Sounds fun.
Yeah, it has almost they look like little magicians. It almost has a Harry Potter vibe to it. So anyway, what you do in this game is the deck is made up of all different color cards. I think there might be 6 or 7 colors. There's a lot of colors. And so on your turn, you can draw a card. You can draw one of 3 face-up cards, or you can draw from the top of the deck. Or you can play cards if you have 2 or more cards of the same color. If you have 2 or more cards of the same color, you simply do what they say. There's 4 different types of cards. One lets you draw cards. Okay. One lets you take gold nuggets. One lets you move your cliff jumper. One lets you move your griffin. That's it. And as soon as someone's griffin or cliff jumper gets to the top, the game ends. Each person gets gold nuggets based on how high their cliff jumper or griffin has made it. So first place gets a certain number of gold nuggets. You add up all your gold nuggets to the ones you got during the game, and whoever has the most wins. So what the game teaches you, it's very simple, right? It teaches you, if I take a card, and now I have 2 orange cards, the next turn I play those 2 cards, and then I draw a blue card, then a blue card, then I play those 2 blue cards, or I could take an orange card, and then play them, and that's fewer actions that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that concept. There's also, you can play the quote-unquote advanced way, where if you play 2 cards of the same type, it will give you a better thing. So if you play 2 gold nugget cards, you'll get 5 gold nuggets instead of 2.
Right.
And so then that teaches you to save up, but maybe you shouldn't save up too late because someone else might end the game before you have a chance to play those cards. So really cool game. It's obviously not for super old kids, but my younger half of the family really enjoyed it. There are 10, 8, and 7, and they really had a good time. And I like the artwork. I liked everything about this. That's Heroes of Kaskaria.
The younger half should be the JV team.
Well, we actually call them Team 1 and Team 2.
Okay.
Team 1, as usually said, you take care of Team 2.
There you go.
So,
speaking of educating the youngins, I pulled out Marvel Legendary this past weekend, and I had actually just intended to sort some cards. I was a couple of expansions behind in putting them back in the box and sorting them, figuring that out. And my youngest, the 5-year-old, his eyes lit up. He saw the box, he saw Captain America, he saw the Hulk. He said, "Dad, what is this game?" And I said, "Come here, my son. Let me show you." I started showing off.
I feel like this
some
is
of the
dialogue.
Heroes. What was that?
Is this the dialogue? Come here, my son.
Come here, my son.
What are you, Father
I showed
Time?
him some of the heroes, and he got very interested. And so he's like, "Well, can I play this game?" I said, "All right, let's do it." And set up, pretty basic run with the Avengers, more or less. And he adored it. He really had a blast, totaling up his attack points, his recruit points, really just embracing it totally. Drew in his older brother, so the next time we played it like 4 times in a row, including the new Guardians of the Galaxy. Actually, it's probably not new. It's not new. New to me. The Guardians of the Galaxy mini expansion that adds in those characters and adds in like shards that can do various things. What really excites me about this game, and still excites me about this game, is the schemes and the way they tweak the mechanisms, tweak the components to do different things, turning somebody into a demon bride or some sort of plutonium being carried off by bad guys, and just using the cards and the materials in the box to set up stories, which is really fun. Just a huge hit with the kids. As far as the Guardians of the Galaxy set, it's kind of hard. Especially if you try and play with all of the Guardians cards at once. I think you almost need to sprinkle those in a little bit, fold in a Hulk or a Captain America or something in there. Because if you're just facing all of the space-based nasty guys, you're in trouble. But the shards are fun. It allows you to save up attack power, recruit power.
Yeah, I really wish they had moved that particular concept to other sets.
Well, you can always stick these in.
No, but I mean, the shards don't always work with all the characters. I mean, I wish other characters used them, that's all.
It's true. I guess they couldn't, because if you picked up an expansion character and you didn't have the Guardian sets with the shards in the first place, I understand you can't really spread them out. But it also can be bad stuff. I mean, the shards can go on the villains or even the mastermind and make them extremely difficult to defeat. And that's what really got us, because we had a villain set that added shards to the mastermind, and then the mastermind was really hard to beat, and we ran out of time. That was our only frustrating aspect of that, but that just makes it more difficult. We're ready to smack them down next time we play. But
wait a minute,
huge
so you
hit.
started with something hard? You're supposed to start with Red Skull, man.
This was the fourth game we played. Was with
okay.
the Guardians guys. We started with, the basic Avengers and maybe Magneto. We did Loki. We did some pretty basic, straightforward heroes. Kingpin with the bribe mechanism. I have kind of stopped buying expansions for this. But now that the kids are super excited, I've put the Secret Wars sets and the Civil War set on my wish list, and they should be entering the house sometime real soon, I think. It's a huge hit.
If I may,
with the kids.
Mr. Summer, I would recommend maybe skipping the Secret Wars.
You think so? Is it too, in-depth?
It's not that it's too in-depth. I think it's you won't recognize any of the characters. See, what the Secret Wars in the comic series, this is the new Secret Wars that happened in 2015. They basically, stuck everyone in this weird universe. So Captain America is he's like Steve and a dinosaur. He's running around with a dinosaur. And
wait, what?
Then you have which is cool, right? But there's a lot of these characters, you don't know who they are. There's a lot of weird stuff. There's zombies in it, and I don't know. I kept mine, but I don't know that I would. If I had to get rid of stuff, that would be the first stuff I got rid of. On the other hand, Civil War is great.
Okay, well,
Civil War is really good.
Go for that one first.
It includes a lot of the very new stuff, and you can even have Iron Man as the bad guy, which your kids might understand if they saw Captain America 3. And it just has some really cool, it has Captain America in it again, another version of him. And it also has double cards. I really like these little double cards. They're when you buy them, they're 2 mini cards. So you can play either side of them. You choose. And they're usually pairs of characters. So you have Cloak and Dagger. And you have Storm and Black Panther. And you just, the different pairs of characters from the Marvel Universe. And so that's a lot of fun.
Well, that's cool, too. The one thing I did buy was more divider cards, because they don't give you enough of those. And you can get them on the website. So now I've got the official Legendary dividers to be nice and organized.
Man, I keep meaning to get those. Here's my deal. My boxes are full. I have the Legendary Villains box, which is the biggest box, and I believe the original box, or one of the boxes. And they're totally full. I even unsleeved all the cards because they were filling up too much room. And I don't play with any particular hero enough that sleeving matters anyway. Right. The amount of combinations in Legendary at this point is really ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, over the top. We're talking almost probably in the trillions of combinations at this point.
It's not worth figuring out.
It is not. But anyway, I'm sorry, I did to hijack your game here.
No, go ahead.
If you are buying this, I think you want to get the original game, and then I would, if you think the original game's too easy, Dark City certainly makes it harder. I would then get the Civil War. That's it. I would get Civil War first. I liked it that much.
Okay.
Of the small expansions, the best one is Fantastic Four. Unfortunately, that one is very much out of print. And because something happened with the rights to those characters, I don't think you'll ever see that one back in print.
Oh, that's a shame.
So if you run across that one, get it. Of the other small ones, Guardians of the Galaxies is my favorite because I like the shard thing a lot. Mm-hmm. Just realize it also has some of the hardest bad guys in the game.
Yes. The Captain America set is pretty cool, too.
Really, there's like no bad set.
Yeah.
I think there was one set I didn't keep, and I'm trying to remember what there's just so many sets for this. How many do you have?
Dark City's the only big box expansion. I've got Fantastic Four. I've got Spider-Man. I've got the Guardians.
Did you get Villains?
I did not get Villains or its small box expansion.
That's the one I did. Okay, that's the one I didn't keep. The Fear itself.
Yeah, that's it.
That one had characters that showed up for one series, and they were kind of cool in that series briefly, but again, kids wouldn't understand them. The Captain America one's good. The Spider-Man Paint the Town Red one is good. Guardians of the Galaxy is good. Secret Wars is okay. Civil War is really good.
Okay. I'll put that at the top of the list. Anyway, huge success with the kids, and it actually led to some other co-op deck builders that I'll talk about in a second.
What other deck builder? A second has passed.
Well, Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle is in the wild now. And I heard it was, getting shipped out, and I was calling local stores to try and find it. Finally found it at a Barnes & Noble that it said it was online, and so I reserved it and got in the car to go pick it up because I wanted it. This was the same weekend that we were playing Marvel Legendary. I'm like, the kids are going to love Harry Potter. It's like, I'll get it now. And I, was running out, and they called me up and said, yeah, it says we have it. But it's actually in the back, and it's buried, and we don't know where it is because there's a lot of boxes back there. So you're going to have to come back on Monday, sir. And so the next day, Sunday, I came by just to check, just to make sure. And they said, no, sir, I'm the one that called you. It's still buried in the back. We'll have it for you tomorrow at 9 a.m. I had to work on Monday, but instead I dropped off the kids, and I went to pick it up at 9 a.m., and it wasn't there. So I had to make the woman go find it, and I heard the scraping of boxes. And so anyway, I got it and then played it like almost immediately with the children. We have now worked...
You could have just ordered it online, dude.
The idea was to get it immediately, and that didn't work out. It's fine. So, Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, as I've discussed already, starts out as a very basic deck builder and actually an excellent introduction to deck building, because you are, as you collect the two resources in the game, the purchasing power, the coins, and the attack power, you take tokens onto your mat. And then you spend those tokens to buy cards and attack the villains. At first, this seems redundant. Later on, once you start fighting multiple villains at once, or buying things differently, or giving resources to your teammates on your turn to use on their turn, it becomes necessary to have these tokens. But at first, it seems redundant. But it also reinforces the whole concept of building your deck, getting resources, using those to get more cards. As you complete games, you then get to open up packets that refer to the next book in the series and add more villains, more heroes, more stuff to buy, adding more villains to fight at once, adding new mechanisms, all of this stuff. So far, we have worked our way through 1, 2, 3, and 4 of this game, and the kids are also adoring this. This is a terrific family deck-building game. However, and this is a big however, the plot of the stories is very much a part of the cards that you get inside these. And my kids have only read through book 3 because I'm afraid that, they're going to freak out when they get to the end of book 4. One of the cards in the book 4 packet specifically refers to the pivotal scene in the 4th book. And I was at least I looked through it first before we started playing because I knew this might be an issue. Everything else is referred to nebulously enough that I don't think it hurts anything. You can just flip up a guy with a name. Barty Crouch Jr. he can be a villain card, and it doesn't really break the story. This particular villain, like Dark Arts card, I had to remove from the game because I think the kids would have been able to figure out what was going on, and it would have spoiled the story. I'm afraid that may also be the case.
Don't play box 4 with them, then.
Don't play book 4?
Yeah, but just stop at book 3.
But then we want the new mechanisms that come in book 4. I considered it. I considered, let's just play book 3 a bunch of times, but they wanted to see the dice that come in the 4 box, and, I want to see what happens in the next box. So I need to carefully wade through the next boxes and make sure that nothing else gets spoiled. I think it's just a specific problem to us at this particular moment. Other than that, it is a terrific production, the best thing I've seen from USAopoly. Really well done. I mean, the box looks like a suitcase. You open it up, it looks like you're looking inside the suitcase because they printed the bottom of the board to look like that. It all unfolds, tuck boxes for everything. They pre-punched all the components. It's really a solid production and a very nice family deck-building adventure. Big thumbs up for Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle.
Now, I just had the opportunity to be at Universal Studios, Orlando, and there's a very big Harry Potter section there.
Is there? Really?
Yeah, okay, fine. Most people know that. And they just built a new section, Diagon Alley.
Yep.
Did I pronounce that okay, Mr. Summerer?
I'm good with it.
Because I'm pretty sure my video review, I pronounced it incorrectly, and I'm waiting fiendishly for the comments. But I'm a little mind-boggled by the number of adults who are almost into cosplay when it comes to Harry Potter. There certainly is a lot of them there. Now, it's a very cool story. I like the books. I like the movies. And the Universal has it down to a T. It's amazing. It kicks Disney around the block when it comes to making things look good. So I was eager to try this game, too. I started with books 1 through 3 because the rule book says you can.
Yes, if you're familiar with deck builders, you just jump straight to book 3.
Yeah, it was not a big surprise there. I do worry that the game has more of an emphasis on luck than I would prefer. Because sometimes the combinations of cards that come up really just beat you around.
The villains, because you have to fight a villain at the beginning of each turn, and some of them can team up to be pretty nasty. Yeah.
Right, or I found I got some cards these cards let me draw extra cards. And then the thing would come up, no one may draw extra cards this turn.
Yes.
Oh,
Painful.
So I'm just going to sit here this turn then. Mm-hmm. And that sort of thing happens in a lot of deck building games. I just felt like it happened more often than this one. I'm also I don't know. I liked it. It was fine. It's a good cooperative game. It kind of weirded me out. The almost giggling when I brought it to the game group. And some people were like, do they have this spell in there? And I was like, I don't know.
They probably do.
Just add the letters US to the end of a word, and you can make a spell. Breakus, Tableus. I mean, it's really kind of ridiculous. I never thought she put a lot of thought into the names of spells.
Interesting. Now you're making me angry.
I don't mind that. The stills from it are fine. The artwork's fine. I don't think there's any major changes to the game except in book 4 and in book 7. Books 1, 2, and 3 are just longer and a little harder.
You fight 2 villains. They add maybe 1 rule each book.
Very minor stuff, though. Really minor stuff. It's essentially just more of the same. And books 5 and 6 are more of the same. And 7 adds in the major plot line that was in book 7. And I don't even know why I'm dancing around this, because if you haven't read Harry Potter by now, come on now.
Right. It's more. It's just the specific situation that kids haven't aged into it yet.
That's true. And so that's why I haven't. So I liked it. The legacy thing is a little overstated. I don't feel like the game necessarily is spoiler. I think Eric and I could talk about the stuff in each of the boxes. It's not a huge, and you can put them all back. The game has a very nice system for either putting everything back in the boxes or not. You can do both. Mm-hmm. And I did like that aspect to it. And I was expecting a much worse game. So I was. It's a highly popular license, Harry Potter, and it was deck building, and I thought they would go the easy way out. And I don't think there's like anything groundbreaking in this game. The biggest change for me is the fact that many of the cards emphasize teamwork.
Yes.
Give someone else an extra card in their turn. Give someone else an extra influence to spend. Let someone else do something. And I thought that's kind of cool. That's a good thing for kids to learn. It's like forced teamwork, but it's
Right.
teamwork.
Yeah.
Also, the Dumbledore card is insanely overpowered.
Yes, but it's also very expensive.
It is. And if you can buy it, and then you could probably win.
Yeah.
Although, in my last game, I bought it, and the game ended around later, which irritated me because I hate buying a really cool card
and then not getting to
being able
use
to
it.
use it.
Yes. I am trying to teach the children, like the youngest, while he's doing very well in understanding the mechanisms, he needs a little help with some of the more complicated cards. But teaching him that there are times that he should not be trying to buy the most useful card for him. He sort of focuses on, I really want to buy Fawkes the Phoenix, when he really should be trying to knock out, the villain that we're trying to deal with that's really messing with us. And you can do it if you keep this card and not this card. No, I want to buy Fawkes the Phoenix. Okay. And having to let him make that decision.
That happens in a lot of licensed games. It even happens in Legendary, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a Spider-Man card. Maybe you want to buy Iceman card. I don't like Iceman. I want Captain America or nothing.
Yes.
So but
yeah.
I'm glad the game is good. It's going to sell out everywhere probably. And judging by the amount of play mine received when I took it to the game group the first time, I mean, I was done with it, and we threw everything back in a box because every time I'm done playing a game for the first time, I'll do the component drop right away to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
And it was sorted out and played immediately by other people. I was like, it's kind of messed up. They're like, no. Oh, we organized everything in books for you. And I was like,
yeah, thank you.
You didn't need to do that, but all right. So that's Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle.
Indeed.
Even though you're not fighting in Hogwarts in a lot of the game.
No, not really.
Okay, well, let's get to some of our contributors. So timely.
Now it's time to aim for the sweet spot with Glenn Flaherty.
Welcome again to The Sweet Spot, a place where we talk about games for limited time, limited funds, limited player counts. So today what we're going to do is talk about a couple games that are very small footprint, very small component. Actually, most of them are just one sheet, and they're all free. So these are all print and plays, and you can get these off of Boardgame Geek. I played them all, and they're all pretty cool. I think you'll dig them. The first one, Grunts. Grunts is a game. It's only one page, okay? So you can take it with you. You can print it out. It's actually a cool little experience, and it's a fun, creative exercise. You are squads of troops trying to make it to the last front of a war. And to do so, you have to roll a die. And when you roll the die, you're moving forward, but there's implications. You may get caught down by sniper fire. You might have to go back. You might be able to advance. There's somewhere between 4 and 6 different squads that you can play at a time. And you might keep one in one area so you can fortify. Another one tries to move in advance to another front. You want to play with 4 because it's a little bit more difficult. And all the while, what you need to do on each front is assemble points that'll let you advance to the next front. So that's a fun game. It's really only going to take 5 to 10 minutes, but it's a fun change pace, and it's definitely a game that you're going to play over and over in a row. Okay. Then we have 1572, The Lost Expedition. Boy, that game is really involved. This one is about trying to explore as much land as you can as you're trying to make it to the ocean. So it's in a way, it's kind of a push your luck game, but man, there's so many things you have to manage in it. It's going to take a while. It's probably going to take an hour. Again, very few components. Once you start playing it, it makes a lot of sense, but it's very involved. It's probably the print and play that'll give you the most decision making. Number 3 is a game called Austerity. And Austerity is a game where you're trying to manage government, Greece, whatever. And so you're trying to keep the population happy, trying to keep them safe. And these are represented by essentially these black cubes that you pull out. And when you get combinations of like police cubes and these other things, it has special effects. Riots occur. And in the game, when you print it out, the game itself is only one board, but they give you these little cutouts that you can put into a bag and pull them out. You pull out 2 at a time. And so it's actually very portable, very easy, and has a lot of content. Okay, so once again, try out Grunts, 1572, The Lost Expedition, and Austerity. Those are 3 great print and plays that are free that I think you'll have a lot of fun with. Okay, guys, thanks again. Talk to you soon.
Let's get under the hood and see what makes one of our favorite games tick with a board game Biopsy.
Hello, Jack here. Welcome again to Gaming Biopsy. Today I'm going to take a look at The Networks, a game by Gilova for Formal Ferret Games. In The Networks, players are competing television moguls who are trying to build a media empire by acquiring TV shows, TV stars, and of course, ads. At its core, The Networks consist on player repeatedly going around the table choosing TV programs to put in the lineup, TV stars to assign to those programs, and ads to assign to the programs to generate the money to afford to produce the shows and to pay the stars in the first place. However, this would be a very simple mechanism if it weren't for, on one end, limitations, and on the other, different rewards. The first obvious limitation is money, especially at the beginning of the game. You might find that not everything is affordable for you. Some TV programs are cheap to produce, but then they will have ongoing costs. Others are simply too expensive for you to produce. Similar with TV stars, the cachet can be not so high, but the bonus on signing can be very high. And ads, they don't give ever as much money as you wanted. Plus, both stars and ads are more suited to one kind of program than another. All programs are divided into categories: sport, reality TV, comedy, science fiction, and so forth and so on. On top of that, there are some prerequisites to produce certain shows. You may want to have 1 star to produce a certain program, and if you have none, your opponents know that you won't be able to snatch that with your next choice, and you will first have to secure a star. You also don't want to waste actions on stars and ads that you don't immediately have to place. Otherwise, you create a delay in your actions, which can be very important, not only because it allows your opponents to snatch other things that you would have wanted, but also because when you're done with your action, that determines how much bonus viewers you get and how late you will play in the next round. On top of this, you have different rewards for combining different elements in the right way. First of all, you want to specialize your network, because if you become recognized as, say, the science fiction network, you will get additional benefits, not directly points, but choices that will help you in the game. On the other hand, your lineup is divided in 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and 10 p.m. slots, and you really don't want to put the wrong program in the wrong time slot, because that will diminish considerably the viewer's return for the first season. The game plays over 5 rounds, so 5 seasons, and each show usually has a very strong second season, and very good first season, and very bad third and fourth seasons. So you want to continuously refresh your palimpsest without putting things in the wrong spot, without assigning the wrong stars to the wrong program. Otherwise, you still get something, but all that money and most importantly action that you spent are less effective than they would be otherwise. All of this would be very easy if it weren't obviously for the other players competing for the same resources. This approach of everything is out there, you just have to grab it, but beware of limitation and rewards, makes the networks fast, interesting, and while I'm not enamored with it as other reviewers, by far the best game by Gilova so far. This has been Gaming Biopsy by Jeki, G-E-K-I on BGG. Thank you for listening.
And now, another tale of board gaming horror.
Oh my, that's horrific.
Gather round, children. I am relatively new to gaming, a year or so, and have managed to find a small group of friends with whom I can share this new interest. However, due to differentiating work schedules, we aren't always available for a full group game night. It was therefore suggested that when numbers are lacking, we try and join the bi-weekly meet-up at our local game store. Being an introvert, I was somewhat hesitant with the idea, but my love for this new hobby managed to overcome any initial anxieties. The opportunity arose for myself and my more socially outgoing friend to attend the next store game night. I was excited. The new games we might play, the potential new friends we might make. My nerves were buzzing with anticipation. Upon entering the store, we noticed the owner sat behind the counter, eyes intently fixated on his computer screen. "Hello!" my friend called out, shortly followed by my own attempted pleasantry. The response we received was a mere turn of the head and an abrupt "hi," before he continued to type away at the keyboard. Okay, I thought to myself, he's busy. We made our way to the next room and thought nothing else of it. The adjoining room contained the entirety of the game group at that stage. 8 or so people sat around a circular table. They had already begun a card game. I can't remember which exactly. Antidote, perhaps. I recognized one of the participants as the co-owner. My friend and I entered the room. We smiled and waved in their direction, but they seemed too engrossed in their game to notice us. My friend and I were taken aback a little. We looked at each other with similar expressions. Do we introduce ourselves? Do we wait for them to finish? We were, after all, first-timers and completely unaware of the game night etiquette. My friend and I decided to wait and began to peruse the wall of games. A short time later, another latecomer arrived. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name, which is a shame because he was the most welcoming person we had met so far. Let's call him Bob. Bob proceeded to guide my friend and I through some gaming suggestions. After some deliberation, we finally settled on Nefarious. Neither my friend or I had played it before, but Bob was more than happy to teach us. We grasped the concepts of the game relatively quickly and thoroughly enjoyed it. So much so that we immediately gave it another run-through. After our second playthrough was complete, the larger group appeared to have finished their game, too. However, my friend suddenly pointed out the time. The game store didn't have its own car park. Therefore, we had no choice but to park in a public car park a short walk away, which was due to close within the next 10 to 15 minutes. My friend and I thanked Bob very much for his help and explained to him that we will have to dash off. He was completely understanding and bid us farewell. It was at this point that the co-owner of the store, the one whom was playing with the larger group, approached my friend and I. "Are you new?" the owner asked abruptly. "Yes, we are," I replied. "Unfortunately, we will have to leave early. Our time is up on the car park. We're very sorry." My friend and I had hoped that the co-owner would show similar empathy as Bob. However, this was not the case. Far from it. The barrage that followed was comparable to that you may hear from a parent chastising a disobedient child. We were informed that by leaving early, we were tarnishing the enjoyment of other players who may wish to play longer or larger games. Needless to say, we were shocked. Left speechless by the tirade we had just received, we promptly exited the store with our heads hung in shame and feeling thoroughly disappointed by our experience. So much for the friendly local gaming store. Never before or since have I been made to feel so unwelcome and guilty. Left only with feelings of bitterness and unwillingness to try anything that outgoing again. I think in future I will stick to playing games with our small group of friends.
was pretty irritated when I read this.
That seems irritating.
I actually emailed him and said, I need to know the name of the store. He said, you're not going to call them out on air? I said, no, I just want to know for my own information.
I mean, the game, if they were playing the group game, I maybe understand. But the tirade
if they said, if they said something to the effect of, hey, do you guys want to play another game? You're like, sure. And then you sit down and you're like, oh, we got to run. Now, I could see that being a little annoying.
Right.
Yeah,
what should have happened with the large group game was, the co-owner or somebody should have said, oh, hey, you guys here for the game group? Yeah, we're just in the middle of this. If you'd like, you can sit behind me and we'll talk about it, or you guys can pick another game on the wall. But we're just finishing this up. We should be done in, 15, 20 minutes.
This is always a tough thing, right? And I'm always worried about this at our game group. Someone comes in, I'm like, oh, okay, do you guys want to play with? Okay, well, if you guys hang on a second, maybe somebody else will come in soon. We got people coming in all the time. We're going to be done with this game at a certain point. And people are usually pretty good-natured about it. But sometimes I worry that someone is too shy to, say anything.
Right.
And I've missed them because the game store is full of other people, too. Now, if they're the only people in the store, that's a different experience.
Right.
And the first problem here is that guy at the counter just not looking up. Come on now. Makes me so irritated.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess the story's true, guys. So let's not have a long thread about whether it's true or not.
Yeah, I mean, we're not fact-checking these.
They might be fake, some of these stories, but let's just accept them as true and talk about how we deal with these situations, because many of these situations, I have seen something extremely similar to them. It seems like we've had several threads over the last few months about whether
calling
some of the
shenanigans on whatever story we. As far as we know, it's true.
Maybe they are, but let's talk about how we deal with it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, before we get to our top 10, I do want to mention it is in a week from now, Eric and I shall be in Germany.
Oh boy! Oh my goodness!
I'm actually less excited than that, mostly because I have much to do before then.
Yeah, I need to make that list of things I need to do at work first, and then figure out how much time I have to prep for Germany.
Ugh. Well, anyhow, we're going to be there. We're going I'll say the same thing I always say. Please stop us and say hello if you see us. We will have a booth. It's in Hall 6, which is a new hall this year.
Mm-hmm. Or at least it's back again. I think it was, 2 years it was in the mix.
Ago.
Yeah.
And we're at B125. So we are across the hall from Quick Simple Fun Games.
Ah.
And I actually was going to say where else we were. I downloaded a map. We're in the same hall as Boardgame Geek, but we're not quite as close to them as we were last year.
We don't get to spy on them this year?
Spy? No, sir.
All right, I'm not going to pack my binoculars this time.
So anyhow, we will have some promos there. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we don't know what promos because many of our promos have been caught up in customs.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, I know. We'll have something there, but I don't know what. We're going to do a live show there. It's going to be on Friday at 5 o'clock. It's sponsored by Yellow, so we appreciate them helping us out and getting us a room. I believe we have 600 people in that room, but it still might fill up. So come by Friday morning to get a ticket. Don't ask for a ticket Thursday. We want to save those for Friday because some people can't come to the fair until Friday, and I want them to have a chance to also see the show. Other than that, this is kind of our preview episode. We're not really doing. There's a lot of videos, so go to the YouTube channel, and we do a lot of videos talking about things we're looking forward to from Essen. We don't with the Dice Tower. I gotta be careful. I don't want to make it always a pre-show, during the show, post-show podcast. And with the number of conventions we go to these days, it could easily turn into that.
Certainly during the summer, yes.
Right. Well, I mean, we go to like 8 conventions a year, so if we do 8 live shows and then 8 pre-shows and 8 post-shows,
that is pretty much everything
we do over the year.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, there's a lot of games I'm looking forward to. Unfortunately, this year's Essen is almost closed-mouthed in a sense about the games coming out. there's like 650 games last I looked that have been announced so far. There's just not a ton of information. I don't even know what the hottest game is going to be. Probably code names.
Yeah, could be.
Well, they always have a big display at Essen for the Spiel des Jahres winners.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm sure will be a big deal. So we'll see. We'll see. And anyhow, we'll be there the entire time. We'll actually be there early. Eric, you're coming in a day earlier than you came last year, aren't you?
I think I came in the Monday night into Tuesday morning last year as well, because it's good to have that acclimation day on Tuesday to get synced with the time zone, and then set up the booth on Wednesday, be ready for the fair on Thursday.
Well, right, because Wednesday for us is so very important.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
There's just...
The press day.
Press day at Essen is more important than any other convention. Because
and I still love it. I mean, I'm amazed that the other conventions don't do this. Gen Con should so do this. They take the publishers, the releases at Essen, and they bring them all up into one small press room where they just set up all the new games, and each publisher has a small little section of a table. They've set up their games. You can go down and take pictures. You can talk with the designers, the publishers, take video, whatever you need, and it's all in one room, and you don't have to go running around the hall. You get like half of the releases taken care of in that Wednesday afternoon, and it's so nice.
Now, for those of you who are feeling jealous, here's the deal. They continue to leave this area open over the course of the convention.
They do
now,
what?
Now, only the press can get in there on Wednesday. But once the convention opens, you can go up there and look at all these games on these tables.
Really?
It's a lot quieter. Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, that's a new tip. I haven't heard of that.
Well, I did it the first time we went to Essen because I got there too late to go to the press event, and someone said, "Oh, there's the stuff still up there." And we went up there. There was like a guard watching, and we just walked through, looked at all these games. I was like, "That's pretty cool." All these games set up here. Many of the and the games were all set up, and there's not people crowding around them. I don't know. It's good for pictures too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, enough about Essen. Let's. Although I will say, I played one of the new games coming out of Essen today, and it was probably the worst time for me to play it, because you might be able to tell from my voice and sniffing, I have a cold. But there's a game called Perfumer, which is a game where you actually need to smell things.
Oh, I bet you did splendidly.
Well, I didn't, but I actually can, even though I have a cold, I can still smell. It's really weird, though, because it's almost like a deduction game. You have these 7... I don't know the full rules yet. We were playing off of a poorly translated document. But there's these 7 smells that come with the game. They're like rose and lavender and pine and lime. And I smelled them. I'm like, oh, that's definitely what these all are. And then you stick a strip into these randomly into 7 different colors. And by the end of the game, you need to identify those colors. So it's like a deduction game. And every once in a while, I can take a lime and smell it. I'm like, okay, that's what, and then I take the pink one, I smell it. I'm like, well, these are definitely different. What does this pink one smell like? I have no idea. And I finally was sure. And then the person I played against, I saw them match blue up to fur. And I was like, well, I put green up to fur. I hope I didn't make a mistake. So I took fur, and then I took the green one and smelled them, and I said, these are definitely different. Once the game ended, I found they were definitely not different.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure if this game is, like, mind-boggling me yet, because the deduction part, super fascinating and fun. There's also this thing where you go around and collect resources and turn them in to make perfumes. That almost felt like a distraction to get points. But, again, I was playing off the poorly translated rules, so I want to play it some more. But, hey, it's a game that uses a sense of smell, and it is not the only one at Essen doing that.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't know where that came from.
I don't either.
So let's go back to real time.
It's time for GameTek with Jeff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
This week's top 10 is real-time games, a topic which is near and dear to my heart. Two of our designs, Space Cadets and Space Cadets Dice Duel, have players doing things as quickly as possible, and for our first design, the Ares project, we really wanted to make it real-time, but just couldn't make it work. So I thought I'd take a few minutes to talk about design considerations for real-time games. First question, why do a real-time game? What does that bring to the table? From an emotional standpoint, real-time games immediately create excitement and tension. Too much tension for some folks, I've found. And from a functional standpoint, real-time games force players to make decisions quickly. Most games don't specifically place an upper limit on how much time you can use to take your turn. There are social presses, of course, but essentially players can ponder their moves for as long as they'd like. Now, most real-time games turn that on their head. The players must make decisions on the fly. However, and this is the tricky design issue, it just can't be about speed. Well, I guess it could be, but I think that would lead to an unsatisfying game experience. The key is not for the players to make decisions quickly, but to make smart decisions quickly. There needs to be a tension between speed and tactics. So if you have to balance making mediocre decisions quickly or taking a little bit more time but making better choices. And the design has to allow people the space to make that choice. When we tried to make the Ares project real-time, the best strategy turned out to be just to play cards as quickly as possible, and that was not any fun. At least it wasn't for me, as I was always slower at getting cards down than my kids. And if you look at real-time games, you'll see that most of them will try to strike this balance. In Lightspeed, which was recently re-released as Stellar Conflict, you place your ships on the table simultaneously. The balance is between placing and orienting them for maximum effect versus getting more ships on the table. In Galaxy Trucker, when you are simultaneously building your ship, you have to balance looking for the piece you need with not being able to finish your ship or get to have the pieces that you want being scooped up by other players before you find them. You have to balance speed and quality. In Captain Sonar, each time you take a move, something good happens and something bad happens, so you have to decide if the benefits of moving outweigh the costs. Another factor that's critical for designing a real-time game is simplicity. If the players need to stop to figure out what's going on or need to resolve a rules question, that's a problem. What the players need to do and the actions that they can take need to be as simple as possible. Now, one popular way of dealing with this is separating the real-time actions that create the game state and the resolution of the state. For example, going back to Lightspeed, in the real-time part of the game, you lay the ships out on the table. The only rules are that you have to place a ship before you can draw a new one and that ships can't overlap. And the actual resolution of firing, shields, damage, and all that stuff are left for the non-timed portion of the game. We leaned on this technique heavily in Space Cadets and Dice Duel, and in Dice Duel, players shout out certain key phrases like Fire 1 or Tractor Beams that stop the action, allowing the players to check the results of that action and give everyone a chance to catch your breath. Most real-time games adopt this punctuated real-time design. Very few are real-time from beginning to end. It's a great technique for being able to encapsulate the complexity into a separate part of the game where players can deal with it. Now, this requirement for simplicity also feeds into another design consideration, mistakes, or less charitably, cheating. The game design needs to be structured so that mistakes are handled gracefully within the system. Cooperative games, real-time games, don't have as much of an issue with this as the players will, to a certain extent, be self-policing, but it can be an issue in competitive play. In many real-time games, mistakes are part of the experience. In Space Alert, for example, ending up in the wrong room is part of the frantic feel. In our upcoming pit crew, making inadvertent or deliberate mistakes is baked into the system, giving the players another avenue for decision-making. But you don't want to design a system where mistakes by players are common or invalidate the whole game and make you start over. The rules need to be simple and bulletproof. Now, there are many more topics to discuss around real-time games, including the use of sand timers as game pieces in games like Space Dealer or Tamsk, or past action tokens in games like Camelot, but unfortunately my real-time has run out. This is Jeff Engelstein with GameTek.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
Well, thanks, Jeff, for that intro to our top 10. From now on, you are required to do those.
Everything must be synced and current. Timely.
You know, it's kind of funny because when I first thought about the idea of doing the top 10 real-time games, I wasn't super keen on the idea, and I was like, we should get around to doing it. And it was very easy for me to make a top 10. There were games I liked that I left off it. But had you asked me to make this list 10 years ago, I don't think there's a single game on my list that is older than 10 years. And I don't think there's one on your list that's older than 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe one.
One is a little close.
Your number 9 might be.
Yep, and my number 6 is a revision of one that might be that old.
No. I know when that one came out, and that is not 10 years old. But anyway, what I mean is, back in the day, real-time games were either like throw cards on the table as fast as you could, faster than somebody else. Cheap-ass games made several of them. Remember Brawl, and I think Falling was one. And you either loved these or you hated them, right? And they never really did that well. And if you told people there was a real-time aspect to a game, they'd be like,
Yeah, I don't want to move that fast.
But suddenly, the real-time became just a way to keep the game moving along, and sometimes it's that tension there. But also, the real-time was added to co-op games, which you will notice feature heavily. So, without further ado, let's get into this list.
Let's do it.
Number 10.
My number 10 I was going to talk about, but 1, it's going to be on Tom's list soon, and 2, there's a threat. I just heard on the soundtrack that there's a threat coming, and I have to deal with it right now, so let's move on.
Actually, I believe you can't talk to me because it's going... Well, I also can't talk about my number 10 because, out of respect. Out of respect for our previous speaker. It's higher on Eric's list, too.
Yeah, sure.
Number 9.
All right, let's get into the number 9 that Tom was referring to earlier. That's Ubongo. This is the real-time puzzle game. You have a puzzle shape, and each round you're going to pull a new shape, and you have to put your Tetris-like pieces, your tangrams or whatever you call them, into this shape. And they all fit in there, and you got to figure out how that's all going to work. And the first player to do that and fit it into their grid gets to grab gems, also in real time. And you're trying to do, it's actually like a majority game. You're trying to have more of particular colors than others. And so you have to make that decision quickly as well. Which gems do I grab out of the center? So you have to solve the puzzle, then make a decision of which gems you want and do it really fast, because if you don't do it fast enough, you won't have much of a choice of gems when you get to the end. That's Ubongo, my number 9.
Yeah, and by the way, this one is more than 10 years old, 2003. I like it fine enough. It's just that my biggest fear with Ubongo is the better player is going to win.
Yes.
Also, the scoring system is wacky. but if someone's faster at figuring out these puzzles, I don't know that it's as much fun for everyone else. I almost would prefer to play this solitaire. Every time I played it, I've kind of whooped up on the people I played against. And I'm sure if I played some other people, I would get whooped up on. But it's not like, oh, Tom got this one, and now Billy Bob got this one. No, it's Tom got this one 8 times in a row. Billy Bob's starting to get annoyed.
Right, yeah, you really do need to play it with equal skill levels, and that's hard to manage.
So... Anyway,
but that can be a case with a lot of these real-time games. A real-time competitive game, the faster player is going to win.
Well, actually, I have tried to avoid that on my list completely.
Oh,
And I did that by number 9, being a cooperative game. It's actually Eric's number 10, and that's Space Alert. This is from CGE Games, and this is best described as Robo Rally meets Chaos.
As if there wasn't enough in Robo Rally.
Robo Rally already had chaos. Eric just stole my joke. And yes, but what it is basically your ship is having other spaceships are attacking it. And you need to stop this. You need to survive. And so you're running around the ship. So everyone is simultaneously programming actions. And you do that with this very annoying musical soundtrack that will occasionally do things like, you guys can't talk to each other right now. It will make that sound. And while that sound's going, you just have to work without talking to each other.
Yeah.
And all sorts of things. New enemies will show up. Sometimes invaders will show up on the spaceship itself, and you got to use robots to fight them off. It's hard. Mm-hmm. It really is. It has one of the funniest rule books ever written. And I like it. My problem with this, and the reason it's low on my list, is simply that I have a hard time getting people to play this. Because there's a very select group of people. They have to like that Robo-Rally programming. They also have to like that speed, that tension of that speed. And they have to like watching everything go wrong, because it often will.
Yeah, you also need a quiet room, because a noisy gaming hall is not a good place to play this game. Unless you really want the chaos of not hearing the soundtrack to begin with.
Well, this is actually true of several games on our list. Whenever there is any kind of soundtrack, and I would say I think 4 of the things we have soundtracks.
It's true.
Yeah, you have to deal with that. Either you are going to be annoyed by everybody else, or you are going to annoy everybody else.
Number 8.
Next up for me is a kids game that we've been very excited about lately. This is Me Want Cookies. It's from Yellow. So the object of the game is to collect a certain number of dessert cards. I think it's 5. And the way you do that is by following a spaghetti-like path from one card to another. So each card has the 6 dessert types. There's like donuts and cake and pie and ice cream. And so you will roll a die that depicts one of these 6 desserts. And then you have to follow that dessert through the spaghetti pattern on the card to another dessert. But then there's another card. So you go from the dessert you just got to and go to that on the next card and follow that spaghetti path, and then get to the third card, follow that spaghetti path, and that leads to one of the 6 desserts, and you must grab that and do it first. And there's both easy and difficult cards. You can sort of tweak the difficulty level on this, and whoever grabs it first claims a card, and then you continue until somebody's gained 5 cards. Every time we play this, everyone is so super tense, and the competition to be the first one to grab that thing is tight in our family, and it's worked well with the grandparents, and the kids love it, and for a simultaneous action game, a real time game, this one has been a big hit. Me Want Cookies from Yellow.
I am definitely in agreement with Eric on this one. It is fun. And if you think it's super easy, you can always play like a very hard adult one and put like 4 cards in a row. Go from that dessert to that dessert, and that dessert to that dessert, and that dessert to that. Done!
Mm-hmm. and then you've got the wrong one. Yeah, it's hard to mess up, or it's easy to mess up. Yes.
All right. Well, my number 8 is Millennium Blades. Now, Millennium Blades is a timed game that doesn't feel awfully timed. There's like, I think, 15-minute time things. And in this time period, and there's several of these, you are buying decks of cards. Essentially, Millennium Blades is a CCG simulator where you are buying decks of cards, trading cards, and so you have this real-time aspect where you're doing that. So you have a certain amount of money, you decide, am I going to buy this card out here, or should I buy a pack and open it up, see what kind of card's in it? I don't like that card. Okay, I'll trade it over here. And you're doing all this simultaneously with everybody else. You can even make deals with other players. But most of the time, you're just opening packs and selling cards, and eventually the time runs out. So you have to build your deck before that time runs out. And it's not critical. You don't feel like I don't have enough time, but it also keeps the game moving, right? It's moving along and moving along and moving along, and it's going to end, so you can't fool around either. And I felt like it was that perfect timing, right? It ends just before, you're like, can you finish, Bob? And by the way, I want everyone to notice that the Bob this week in our story was a good Bob.
Mm-hmm. Good Bob.
But anyway, so Bob is taking forever on his turn, but no, this keeps Bob from going too long. So I like that aspect. That's Millennium Blades.
Number 7.
Number 7 for me, it's nothing to do with the fact that Jeff was just talking. Space Cadets is the number 7, and that this is the original cooperative game. Where you've got your setup, your station, and then at certain points you will have like a 30-second timer or a minute timer to do something. And you're digging in a bag and finding pieces and trying to match stuff around and programming the ship and doing all the stuff that you need to do to make the ship fly around. And there's going to be mistakes made, and there's going to be panic, and there's going to be that one last thing that you need, and you don't have all the resources you need to do it, and you're really struggling. And that is the key. That's the whole game is working together, pulling through and trying to do your job amidst the ticking time clock. Space Cadets, real fun. Once you know the game, that's the only difficult part is you have to learn your station. But once you know your station, it's a blast. Number 7.
If we ever do a top 10 hard games to teach to people, this would be on the list.
Well, individually, it's not difficult. It just takes time. You can't do it simultaneously. You have to teach this station. And all right, you got it? Good. Now over here is this station, and you just have to do each one individually.
But then they have to switch stations.
And then they have to switch stations, and they say, I wasn't listening to the rest of that explanation. Can we go through that? Maybe you can train each other.
Yeah, I like the game. It was in my top 15 probably. My number 7 is Galaxy Trucker. This is the second CGE game on my list. This is a game in which, at the same time, as quickly as you can, you are building your spaceships. If you could take your time in this game, it would be too easy. It would be, it would allow for analysis paralysis. But because once someone's done, they start a timer, that gives everybody else incentive to get theirs done as quickly as they can. And of course, you then watch everything go bananas. I love it. Galaxy Trucker.
Number 6.
Number 6 is Time and Space. This is a reworking of Space Dealer. And actually, when it comes to real-time games, this is one of the slower ones. This is a 30-minute game. And all of your actions are governed by sand timers. So you're flying your ship around. It's a pick up and deliver game, and you're moving around from place to place. And in order to move your ship, you have to do a sand timer. When the sand timer runs out, you've moved the ship one section of space. Or if you want to generate resources, you need to use a sand timer. And so everything is dependent on these timers and moving things along. And you've got think while the timers are moving. What am I doing next? And as soon as that timer runs out, quick, do this next thing, start the next timer, here we go. Okay, what am I doing next? Okay, this one ran out, gotta go. So it's got a real roller coaster of timing and quick movement. Hurry up and wait, what am I going to do next? Very fun. Time and Space, my number 6.
Yeah, I like Time and Space, but there's 2 reasons it didn't make my top 10. One is because it's too easy to cheat in it by accident. I don't mean anyone's deliberately trying to cheat, but you cannot watch everyone else.
No, you can't. And this is something Jeff talked about in his segment. This is maybe one that's difficult not to make mistakes on.
And the second problem I have with this particular game is it's simply, if you take away the real-time aspect, the game itself is pretty mundane. You are essentially picking up cubes and delivering them to other spots, which I know you love.
I do.
And I like the game fine, but if you took away that real-time aspect, I would have no interest in it at all.
I guess. But, the point is efficiency.
I agree. If you notice, this game has not, stood the test of time. It was reprinted, which was kind of mind-boggling when I heard that, but I don't think you'll see a second reprint of it.
All right.
I might be wrong. However, same publisher, reprinted Time and Space, reprinted my number 6, which is Stellar Conflict. This is a really crazy fast little game. In fact, I think it's 2 minutes is the longest this game will ever go. You're throwing spaceships down on the table. They're cards, spaceships, and they're all have lasers shooting out of them. You throw them down the table as fast as you can, and then the game's over. And then you score it. And you take each spaceship and you measure where their lasers are pointing, and they blow up other spaceships. And some spaceships shoot faster than other ones, but they're probably weaker. And you're also trying to shoot and mine stuff, so you get points for destroying other people's spaceships. You lose points for destroying your own, and yes, you will likely shoot your own spaceships. And you can even add special abilities to the spaceships, which adds some fun to the game. I really, really love this game. It's silly, it's fun, it's one of my travel games that I have. That's Stellar Conflict.
Number 5.
All right, ending the Stronghold Games section of our list, I've got Space Cadets Dice Duel on the list, which Tom also had earlier on. This is the team version of Space Cadets, and you're rolling dice really fast and trying to maneuver your ships, and it's really fun when you've got captains involved, 4 players on each team. In fact, it's even better if you add in the Die Fighter expansion, where you have an additional player flying around a tiny little ship and rolling their own dice and trying to pew, 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 shoot at stuff. chaos for sure, as you try and maneuver things around, and you make plans and you try and maneuver through them, and then realize that the other ship has moved across the board, and now you have to try and get in range again. A little tricky to learn to get comfortable with the mechanisms and really be able to focus on what you need to do. It's a lot of running into asteroids for a while, but a blast. Trying to get the ship to do what you want it to do. It's my number 5, Space Cadets Dice Duel.
Yeah, I really also like this one. This one kind of knocks Space Cadets off my list. They're really not the same game.
They're not.
Space Cadets is a co-op game. Space Cadets Dice Duel is a team game, and I realized that I like the team aspect better. Space Cadets Dice Duel is actually knocked down on my list because of a game that will show up later on my list. But I just like that whole aspect. And the captain's saying, I need this dice. I'm like, I'm trying to roll it. You shut up. I'll give you this dice eventually.
Quiet, you.
So that's a lot of fun. Okay, so we record this show, and every once in a while...
Wait a minute, something changed.
Yeah. Okay, so there was a break here, folks, because we realized I had the same game on my list twice.
He just really, really liked it.
Well, I really do like it, but we'll get to that game later. No, so I accidentally had written the same game twice, so I had to mess with my list. So I've already talked about my number 5, which was Stellar Conflict. Galaxy Trucker was actually my number 6.
Oh.
Millennium Blades was actually my number 7. Space Alert's my number 8. Space Cadets Dice Duel, my number 9. And my number 10 game...
Oh, hang on. Let me play the number 10 sound effect again.
Number 10.
Okay.
So my number 10 is another Stronghold game. He really does like these real-time games.
He does.
In fact, he has like a party game, too, that's real-time, right? From Vlada...
Yeah, and there's Space Sheep, too. That's real-time.
Oh, that's not a good game.
Wait, this isn't Space Sheep?
That one, folks. No, but what's the Vlada Shvato one called?
Pictomania?
Pictomania, that's right. That was also him. He must like real-time a lot.
Yeah, he does.
He's always so busy. It's that New Jerseyan in him,
That's what it is.
Anyway,
go.
I really like Going, Gone. This was designed by Scott Nicholson,
yes.
who I believe has designed 2 games, this one and Tulips, or something like that.
Yeah, Tulip Mania.
Tulip Mania, right. Scott is now, he works in escape rooms. That's his thing. But Going, Gone is just a really silly game in which it's a real-time auction. Someone counts down from 10, and while they're counting down, you throw cubes into cups, and once they're done counting 10, they slam this fan down on top of the cups, and whoever has most cubes in a cup wins that auction and wins the card associated with it. And I've played in games where people said, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mm-hmm.
And people were just throwing cubes all over the place. I still remember the first time I played this. I played this with, it was a very interesting game. I played this with Jason Levine, Rich Sommer, Steve Weeks.
Ooh.
And I don't think you were in that game. And maybe it was with Scott himself. I don't remember, but there were cubes like flying off the table. And people were screaming very loudly.
Yes.
It was very enjoyable.
Yes.
Although that fan piece breaks, I think, in everyone's game, just because people are smashing it down so
Slam
much.
it down, yeah.
I now have a thing that you have to count down a little slowly. I mean, you can go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right, but you have to hear all the numbers.
Fast as you go. Yes. So anyhow, it's still an entertaining game. It's a little bit exhausting to play too often, but I like it. My number 10, Going, Gone.
This made my short list. It's probably in the teens, low teens. But yes, I agree. Chaos and screaming. I think my most memorable game of this involved a lot of screaming. Noted children's book illustrator Debbie Owie, who just constantly screamed. Every time anyone started counting, she went, ah! And she won. So as far as I know, that's the best strategy.
I shall try it in every game.
Yes.
It can be a quiet, thoughtful game.
All right, moving on to what number are we on now?
I forget.
Number 4.
That's it. It's number 4 is Fuse for me. We talked about co-ops being a major aspect of this list, and Fuse is that dice rolling, choose your die real fast to fit it into puzzle cards that are in front of you and complete patterns so that you can complete that card, grab another card, do it again. You've got 10 minutes to make this all work, and depending on where you set the difficulty, that can be a very tricky proposition. In fact, the first time you play this, you're probably going to fail just because you're not moving fast enough. You got to really haul through the dice rolling and the drawing of the bag and picking your dice very quickly and knowing when it doesn't matter and knowing when you really need that die or else you can take nothing else. Very fun. I love Fuse. My number 4.
This was certainly on my short list. I think this is a list that Eric and I actually agree on more than disagree.
Probably.
Because even like there's nothing on Eric's list that I actually disagree. I mean, Ubongo and Time and Space, I don't love them as much as he does. But
Right.
I mean, there's nothing I think is bad on your list.
Right. You're not saying anything doesn't fit.
Have you played my number 4, Panic on Wall Street?
I have not.
Yeah, see, Panic on Wall Street is a really cool game. It's actually a reprint. It had a kind of a different theme about cattle ranching, but the Panic on Wall Street version is just Wall Street. But it splits the players into 2 groups. Now, this is not teams. These are groups, and each group has 1 winner. So there's 2 winners in the game. So one group is the banks, and the other people are like the investors. And you have these whiteboards, and there's like an auction at the beginning of each round, or at the end of each round, and people will have different investments. And then the stock market happens, and these different investments are going to go up or down. But before the stock market happens, the banks are trying to sell these different companies or shares of their things to the different investors. And this happens in real time. And this game can play up to 11 players. So I have seen people running around the table. I have seen a chip thrown all the way down from one end of the table to the other. So because you're like, hey, I'll buy that one for 100. And I'll be like, no. Before you give that to him for 100, I'll give you 150 for that one. And then someone else will be like, look, give me all yours and I'll give you $500 right now. And once these chips land down on things, once a chip is down, I've bought it. Well, not actually. You can still say no, but you can then turn the chip over and lock it, right? You can't do anything else. So all the screaming and yelling is done. You then buy these. You're like, yay! Then you roll the shares and you see if you bought something good or not. Because sometimes some of the stocks are more volatile than others. And you keep going. And at the end of the game, of the investors, whoever has the most money wins. And actually both sides, whoever has most money wins. But the money amounts are going to be different because the shareholders are going to win by buying stocks that then do well. And the other people are getting money from the shareholders buying their stocks from them. It's crazy, but it's fun. It's one of the few games I know that, like I said, that goes to 11 players. I once had a group of people came to my house for a guy's birthday party. They were taking him on this very extended surprise trip. They were obviously not poor. They flew him to Miami. They took him to like an NBA game.
Wow.
And then to the beach. And then for a gaming with Tom Vassell. And all these things were like surprises. So anyway, there was 11 of them. They're like, do you have a game? I was like, yes, I do. So we played Panic on Wall Street. And it was a really fun experience. So that's my number 4.
Okay.
Number 3.
My number 3 is Walkstar, the cooperative Chinese restaurant running game from Tim Fowers. And we talked about sort of the pressure of this. And each customer in Walkstar, when you have a timer running, you're sort of panicking. But in each customer in Walkstar is a new timer. So you've got like 20 seconds to serve this guy egg rolls. And you have to get the ingredients and put the recipe together and move those and then get that customer to the completed pile and then move on to the next customer. And you have to do all that before the timer runs out or that customer leaves unhappy. And you must continue this, keeping the cycle of ingredients flowing, getting new ingredients using the dice that you've rolled, trading dice around. Oh, no, I'm out of pork. I need pork. Okay, we got to do something to get more. And the chaos of that really emulates the chaos of a kitchen during, meal rush, which is pretty cool. My wife really has enjoyed Walkstar. We played it with her a lot recently, and really a huge hit for her. Number 3, Walkstar.
Yeah, this one was also on my very short list. I want to say this might have been 12. My 11 is going to be mentioned by one of our contributors who will act like he's the only person who thought of it. But anyhow, great game, Walkstar. If any game brings the pressures of fast food to life, I know it's Chinese food, but it still has that, get this order done, and get it done now. Oh, the nightmares, Eric. Let's continue on. Oh, I can't even talk about my number 3, because it's coming up later on your list.
Number 2.
Number 2 is Escape, the Curse of the Temple. the dice rolling co-op game from Queen Games. You're running around and you have to roll various symbols on the dice in order to unlock doors and move into the next chambers and collect gems. And the more gems you create, the easier it is to escape from the temple once you're done. But then that gong goes off and you all need to rush back to the center. There's a soundtrack. This is another 10-minute exactly game. So you have to listen for that gong, and then the music gets really, really freaky, and you got to run to the middle before the gong goes again, and you're trapped forever, and who wants that? And so then you head back out, and you have to find the exit and eventually work your way out. People get trapped, and they need help, and you have to work together, and if you leave one guy stranded on the other side, he's bound to get stuck, and there's no way he's going to get out. Stressful. But good time. Escape, The Curse of the Temple. My number 2, and Tom's number 3.
See, this game saddens me. Because it's my number 3. I love it. And I can hardly ever get my kids to play it. Because they're like, it's so stressful, Dad. I'm like, come on, let's just play it. I got the traps. That makes it even harder.
Yeah, it's more stressful now, kids. Sit down.
Yeah, now they had the Escape Zombie City, which is good. It's just not as good. Escape is pretty solid. And there's lots of expansions. And the expansions are fun because you can add, they're like modules almost.
Yeah.
So you pick which one you want to add. And, you explain it ahead of time. Okay, we're going to do traps. We're going to do this one here that if you get stuck in this room, you can only get out if someone else comes and opens the door for you, which really irritates everybody. But, man, so much shouting in this game. And that soundtrack, that gong. Oh, I love the gong.
Yes.
And you're like, get back to the room. Get back to... I love it. So, yes, I like this game too. Escape. My number 2... once again, higher on Eric's list, has to always one-up me on everything.
Well, we're playing the turn-based version right now.
North.
And finally, number 1.
Number 1, as Tom suggested, is Captain Sonar, the recent Matago game, with the 2 teams piloting submarines. And you can play this turn-based, and it's a great way to learn the game. But it really shines when you flip those boards over and everybody does their actions simultaneously. You've got the captain, you've got the radio operator who's listening to the opposing captain and trying to figure out where that submarine is, and you've got the engineer, and you've got the last one, the engineer and who's the first officer? That's it. Tracking stuff and making sure systems are online. And then just when you think you can shoot a torpedo, the engineer's like, oh no, I just crossed off a torpedo. We need you to go left 8 times before we can fix that. So, but the joy when you finally figure out where the opposing sub is and okay, we know it right there. Go, start fire and try and get him. And then you miss and then you start over again. Really some memorable adventures playing this game. And it really is all about that real-time game. If you need to get to that point, once your group has learned the basic mechanisms with turn-based, you must try it real-time. Captain Sonar, number 1 by a nautical mile, I think.
Yeah, this is the one that knocks Space Cadet's Dice Duel down for me. Because they fill that same bucket. They really do. I mean, they're both team-based games. You're both working, but... as much as I like Space Cadet's Dice Duel, Captain Sonar just comes together in such a smooth way. Each person's job, and every time I teach this game, and I've taught it over 10 times, the people are like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle my job, and I'm like, just wait. And once they start, so easy.
Yeah, it's got a lower hurdle, I think.
But each job feels unique. Now, there's no question that the radio operator is the most important job. Well, maybe the captain, but there's no question the radio operator is like sitting there and they're focusing on their one thing. But the other 3 people are all working together. The captain, the first mate, the engineer. And I just love how that comes into play. And it's really funny because every time I've taught it, I also teach it through the turn-based structure. And everyone's like, and I'm like, and now we're doing real time. And everybody's like, oh. And I taught this at Cool Stuff like last month. And I taught them to it. And then I said, okay, you guys ready for handling real time? We flipped everything over. I explained how it works. They started. And then I went to play another game. I came back, and 2 of the people had gone and bought the copies in the store. And the other 2 people were mad that they could not buy the copies.
They didn't move fast enough. That was the next level of the real-time game.
And it was, everyone just loved that game that much. So, I mean, its biggest flaw is that it needs 8 people to be like the best.
Right. Although I saw some folks on Twitter playing a 2-player game of this and apparently enjoying it.
Oh, that's fine. So my number 1 is actually a game I don't believe Eric has played, and that's Project Elite.
No.
I'm really loving on Project Elite these days, and it's from Artipia Games. I don't believe it is picked up by a U.S. publisher yet. It's a box full of plastic miniatures. And these are just monsters who are rushing towards your base. And you need to stop them. And so you are like a Space Marine type character. And you will take 8 different turns of this game. Each turn is 2 minutes. And, you know, there's some setup and some takedown. But during those 2 minutes, you're rolling dice as fast as you can. And you're trying to get different symbols so you can shoot the aliens. And, you know, you roll different combinations. You can blow them up or you can move on the board. And you're doing this as fast as you can. But every time you roll a bad alien symbol, you're like, okay, I got to move one of the aliens closer to the base. And so you can work together. You can be like, hey, can you move that alien over there? Sure. What are you doing? Why are you moving the alien? Go shoot that alien. And whatever other objectives you have to do over the course of the mission, it actually has a lot of similarities to Escape, because Escape has that bad side of the dice too, right? Mm-hmm. So this has that too, and I just really like it. I love the fact the aliens just keep coming and coming and coming. You're like, hurry! It's very, very fun. That's Project Elite. I highly recommend it. The miniature quality is not the best in the world, but since I am literally grabbing them and throwing them off the board, it's probably for the best.
All right.
All right, let's see what the contributors say.
Hi, my name's Eddie. And I'm Tony from the Start Space podcast. My pick is City Baba. There's other games that I like more as total games, but when I think about just the real-time element, City Baba is so innovative and so weird. I love it.
Millennium Blades is mine. I really like all of the real-time strategy that goes into it, the different levels, the different things you can do with your time, the trading, the buying, all of it. It's a great game.
It's a real good time.
Hello, this is Ignacio Chivchek, Portal Games.
And this is Stephen Bonacore, Stronghold Games. We are Board Games Insider.
And my favorite game, real-time game, is a game from Cheapas Games, created by James Ernest. I played this game a lot, and this is called Brawl. I love this game.
Don't know that game. But I'm going to go with Galaxy Trucker. I mean, just a fantastic mix of, you know, trying to create your spaceship in real time and then getting it blown the crap up. Galaxy Trucker.
This is Anthony from Board Gamers Anonymous, and several weeks ago this would have been a completely different answer. But now, after Gen Con, Captain Sonar has to be my favorite real-time game. The pure joy of actually finding and hitting your opponent's submarine in this game is unmatched by any other real-time game I've played thus far. The chaos, the noise, the trying to listen to 3 different people at once, it works so well together. It feels like you're on a submarine. It feels like you're trying to get those other guys. Captain Sonar has to be my favorite real-time game out there right now.
Hey everybody, it's the Board Game Point of View, and our favorite real-time game is Zombie 15 from Yellow.
So Zombie 15, you are a group of kids running through a suburban neighborhood shortly after the world has been consumed by a zombie infestation. The kicker is that as you move and as you search, this is all happening against the clock. So the zombies are going to catch up to you and they're going to devour you.
Yeah, and you find really interesting things while you are rummaging through people's homes. Some things I didn't expect to even find.
Grenade launchers. Katanas.
Heavy assault rifles. Who knew?
Don't feel so bad about your golf club collection.
Yeah.
It could come in use.
So that's Zombie 15.
Hey, this is Paul Owen of Dice Tower News. I'm not a big real-time game fan, but I have to admit that there's one real-time game that gets me charged up, and that's Space Cadets Dice Duel by the Engelsteins and Stronghold Games. I don't know why, I don't normally go for those speed dice rolling games, but I really respond to the pressure of trying to steer the ship where you want it to go or build the missile so you can shoot the enemy before he gets away. So crazy, so much fun. Space Cadets Dice Duel.
It's Roy Canday from Epic Gaming Night, and for me, it's Galaxy Trucker. I love building the ship and trying to connect all the little pipes together and get all the different components you need. Every component in the game is great in a different way, trying to get guns on the front and engines on the back so you can be in the lead, and trying to have shields so you're not going to get hit by asteroids on all the different sides. Waiting to see if your ship is good enough to compete with the other players, and just watching it all fall apart in the end. Galaxy Trucker.
Hi, this is Sean from the Game Pit, and my choice for this is XCOM. I'm not a big fan of real-time games in general, but this one at least has the real-time aspect before you do your dice rolling. It's the dice rolling and real-time together that really irks me. So XCOM is my choice.
I'm going to irk you, Sean. I'm going to go for a real-time dice roller. Ronan here. I'm going for a game that just came out this year. Maybe not the greatest components, but really fun gameplay. That's Project Elite, where you're rolling those dice quickly to deal with the alien threat. I think it's a fantastic cooperative game, and I recommend giving it a try.
You're wrong.
You're wrong.
This is Graham from Four Corners of the Board, and my top real-time game? Well, I wanted to give something I hoped was a little different, so the game I'm going to suggest is Damage Report. You have exactly 45 minutes to fix your ship, and every 3 minutes a damage report comes in that it affects different parts of your ship. The interesting thing with this game is that everyone has a 15-second sand timer, and each player can only perform an action when the sand timer has run out in their green section. Then they flip it over and have to wait. But if life support is damaged, you may have to flip your sand timer 2 to even 4 times before you can perform a different action. It's very tense, but it does give you time to talk and strategize while playing frantically.
This is Professor Scott Rogers from Biography of a Board Game. And what's my favorite real-time game? When I did my research, I didn't realize there were so many of them. 137 pages on Board Game Geek. And I realized I hadn't played that many of them. But at Gen Con 2015, I had the distinct pleasure of playing the Star Trek Interactive VCR board game, run by none other than Flip the Tables Flip Flory. And Flip ran a wonderful 3-ship game and was the chief ambassador of the Klingon Empire, who made our lives a living hell by making us experience beige. Thanks, Flip. I had a great time. So that's my pick, the Star Trek Interactive VCR game.
Well, if Graham hadn't mentioned Damage Report, I probably would have put it in as an honorable mention.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, too, especially with the way the timing mechanism works and the life support level and making the life support better really increases your efficiency. But if it takes a lot of effort to get it to that point and to keep it at that point. It's tricky.
Yeah, this one kind of flew under the radar, but that just happens with Kickstarter games sometimes. But I really like that one. I'm surprised Ignacy liked Brawl. Brawl was one of those super fast real-time games I told you about that most people hate them. And some people really like them.
I was surprised at Scott's mention of the Star Trek Interactive VCR game.
I was gonna totally ignore.
You're just gonna let that go? Okay.
I was.
Okay.
I'm not giving credence to that sort of stuff. All right.
Experience beige.
What did the people say? Number 10, Space Cadets. Number 9, Pit.
Two.
What? I always liked how in Pit, if you shout it loud enough, maybe they'll do it. Like, I'll be like, 1! And so you look past me, you're looking, because you have 2.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 1! It's like, guy, if no one wants to trade 1 with you, maybe you should try something else. I think with Pit, and it's not on our list, I think Pit, another game that could go in that category would be Happy Salmon.
Yes.
All right, number 8 is Steam Park. Now, yeah, Steam Park has that real-time aspect at the very beginning.
It does.
I guess that's part of the game. It is part of the game. I just don't really consider that much of a real-time game. Even if you decide to take your own good old time and you just get some more dirt. Expansion's coming out for that Essen.
Huh.
7 is Fuse.
Mm-hmm.
6, Space Alert. 5, Captain Sonar. 4, XCOM, the board game.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I was surprised Captain Sonar is so high on the list already, honestly.
Yeah, it's still
XCOM, though,
hot.
has that real-time aspect where you're all doing different actions at the same time and things show up. I like that. 3, Space Cadets Dice Duel. 2, Galaxy Trucker. And number 1, Escape.
Yeah, that's got a big footprint, I think, at this point.
I want to find the guy who did the voice for that.
Escape.
And have him do, our intros. Episode 474. Real-time games. Gong.
Well, I guess I could add some reverb at the beginning if you want.
Oh, so that's you?
No. But I could try and emulate that.
I'm gonna talk to Queen Games and see who it is. I'll find out. All right, folks, those are our real-time games. Tell us in the forums what you think. What did we miss? What can you not believe people said? Is this genre better than you expected? Like I found it to be a genre that, even though I thought I would not like many games in it, I found out that there are many games in it that I love. So, anyhow, let us know next time. Until then, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 477, was recorded on October 1st, 2016. Coming up next week, what is your favorite type of D6? Find out what our contributors have to say. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out how you can help at jackvassal.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Jason Thompson, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Our poem titles are provided by Ode Names, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Email us at Dicetower@gmail.com, or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including the Out of Game podcast, 20 Minutes of Filler, the Push Your Luck podcast, the D6 Generation, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, the Portal Gaming podcast, and Board Game Breakfast at DicetowerNetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. Okay, let's try.
Episode 477.
No, that sounds like Darth Vader too much.
Well, there wasn't any breathing.
Episode 477.
That sounds a little more like Olmec.
We'll get it. And we're not going to bed until we do get it.
Oh, boy.